Good evening. I'm Acting District Secretary Nicole Ginzali. It is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2014, and this is a regular meeting of the Dublin Sanderville Services District Board of Directors. Presiding this evening is President Georgine von Leer-Leopold.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand and join in the salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please. Nicole.
Director Benson? Director Hopkins? Director Howard?
Here.
President Forte?
Here.
President von Leer-Leopold.
Here. Okay, any special announcements tonight, Mr. Gallagher?
That's not.
Public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the board on items that are not on the agenda, and I do have 2 speakers cards. Mr. Ed Coco and Ms. Gretchen Kellerman. Mr. Coco?
Great. Hello, my name is Ed Coco, and I'd like to take a few minutes to share my family and many of my neighbors' concerns surrounding the proposed AT&T cellular base station equipment installation at the road water tank site. I've spoken on the topic briefly before at a previous board meeting, and I understand this topic is not formally on the board's agenda for public comment, but will be in the coming weeks, potentially on the 16th. But I'm disappointed that after almost a year of being presented with the prospect of the cell site being installed close to our home, I'll be unable to make the meeting on the 16th. It is indeed scheduled. There will be a scheduling conflict. But I'll take this opportunity today to outline my family's concerns prior to the board's decision. As I mentioned in the previous meeting, our family and many of our neighbors have submitted family letters to DSRSD and the City of Dublin detailing our objections to the proposed water tower site. Our joint neighborhood petition letter also has been submitted that outlines many of the same concerns with nearly 60 signatures from neighboring homes. This represents over 2/3 of the homes within the City of Dublin's specified 300-foot survey area around the site. Letters and PDF files of cited references and reference papers to substantiate our discussion points have been provided and are available for board members to review prior to the discussion in the coming weeks. Over the last year, my wife and I have spent a substantial amount of time thinking about the proposal, meeting with AT&T, site selection and safety consultants, reviewing information provided by AT&T, and doing our own research, and come to the conclusion that the proposed cell site is not in the best interest of our family. We have concerns over long-term health, 20 to 30 years time frame of our family, property values of surrounding homes, local environmental impacts, noise levels, air conditioning equipment, and general aesthetics of the proposed site. We feel that the neighbors in the immediate vicinity of the proposed site being asked to shoulder a disproportionate amount of burden and risk with little stated benefit of compensation from AT&T, especially since there appears to be reasonable alternative sites that can be investigated. My wife and I have 2 young girls who happen to be here tonight. Our primary focus and concern when selecting our home in Dublin was to establish a safe and healthy environment for them to live. And my wife and I did our homework prior to buying our house on West Beaumont. We talked to neighbors. We called the city to inquire about the water tower, earthquake retrofits, inquired what type of water is being stored in the tank, and reviewed prior hazard reports. The property line is less than 75 feet from the proposed cellular array and less than 25 feet from the proposed support equipment shed. My wife and I don't feel comfortable with the equipment installation so close to my daughter's play area and our backyard, and would not have purchased our current home if there had been an existing cell base station when we looked at the property, or notes in the real estate disclosure report when buying the property. I brought a couple photos today. I just wanted to show our personal circumstances, our backyards. This is at the top of the hill at our property line where we have a bench that we enjoy the views. To the west, there's the water tower tank. And right through that notch is where AT&T is proposed to install, right at the top of the tank, one of the arrays. And in the gap between the trees is where the proposed building is going to be. So just, like I said, 25 feet from where we sit and look out to the west. If we can tap through to the next one. Oops.
Too far?
Yeah, one back, I guess. So this is from our kitchen and same view from our family room. So basically, we have the tank here. We enjoy the backyard environment. We like the tall redwood trees and everything. And coincidentally, we don't have to water anything in our backyard. It's somehow found water on its own. We haven't watered anything since we moved in. Next slide. Thank you. And this is just kind of the view that we were talking about. And if we move on to the next one. So as you can see from the photo looking to the west, there's another water tower owned by DSRSD approximately a half mile to the west, sitting high on a hill, and that's off to the left that you see there. It's much further away from existing homes, and we ask that AT&T and the Water District work together to revisit using alternative sites such as this for the installation of the new cellular equipment. When asked about this water tower to the west, AT&T consultants provided me with a very brief response that the site would not work. It's not meeting engineering or property owner requirements. As an engineer myself, I find it odd that the water tower to the west is not a better site than the road water tower covering our neighborhood, as it sits higher in elevation and overlooks a much larger area. I understand that selecting a more remote site has cost implications for AT&T, but I imagine that they should be minimal for a company whose quarterly profits is consistently in the billions of dollars. If we tab through just the next, and I don't intend to take the entire evening either. I'll try to move here quickly. You can see that it sits much further away from existing homes and higher up. And this is our property right here adjacent to the water tank. So moving on the topic of health and safety, my wife and I have spent time reviewing articles about ongoing research about exposure guidelines for children with serious concerns about the equipment emitting 9,500 watts power directly towards our home within 100 feet, concerned that it will be safe over the long term for all possible mechanisms. We did speak to AT&T safety consultants who reassured us that it's safe. While acute effects might be unlikely, we have found many references to ongoing research from professional organizations indicating that there can be negative effects for low-intensity exposure over long durations, and more research is needed. And I'm having trouble trusting who to trust with my family's well-being. Trust the consultants or FCC requirements that potentially could change in the future, or stop worrying about it, I guess, or should we move? That's something that we've considered. News articles and research reports don't help, and they elevate our concerns. For example, the Buy Initiative Working Group report from 2012 documented adverse health effects from very low radiation levels and stated at least 5 new cell tower studies with base station RFR at levels ranging from several hundreds to microwatt per square centimeter, which coincidentally is several orders of magnitude below current FCC requirements. And reports of people having headaches, concentration difficulties, and behavioral problems in children and adolescents, and sleep disturbances, headaches, and concentration problems in adults. There's other report quotes that it's more probable than unlikely that non-thermal EMF from cell phones and base stations do have long-term effects on biology. On the whole, it can be concluded that long-term exposure near base stations can affect the well-being of populations around them, or reports that indicate effects from very low but long-lasting exposures to emissions from mobile telephone base stations cannot be ruled out. And many other reports that say more research is needed. Not to mention all the news articles of cell sites being proposed near schools and homes, and how families continually do not feel comfortable with this prospect. And I don't see why we should. I corresponded with several people on the topic, including the director of the Center of Family and Community Health at Berkeley School of Public Health, who researches cell phone radiation. And he stated there's a lot we still don't know about the health effects of cell phone radiation, and points out that even non-ionizing, low-intensity radiation can be a biological stressor. He provided me with a lengthy reply email that I have here with me today, and it says that the cell tower is more than 300 meters away from your home. There's likely to be too low level exposure to produce any short-term or long-term effects. And then in the same sentence, he concedes that unfortunately that's not our circumstance. And he went on to provide us with useful tips for minimizing our exposure within the home and from outside sources, and even suggested commercial shielding products to reduce penetration of radiation in the home if the site's approved. That doesn't exude confidence for our family. We can mitigate the total exposure of for our children from handheld cellular and wireless devices in the home by turning them off, which is preventing my daughters from using them. But we won't have that luxury for a CBS unit that runs 24/7 immediately behind our home. In addition, there are many other articles, and I just have a few more comments if you mind bearing with me. I know my wife's probably not going to speak, so maybe I can use her 3 minutes.
Go ahead.
Thank you, I appreciate it. In addition, there are many articles showing compelling evidence that property values decrease. And for instance, the National Association of Realtors website, from several studies from the Appraisal Institute, highlight evidence that the equipment can cause a decrease in home value. And I know I mentioned this at the last meeting, but it's a real concern for us. And we state 2 to 20%, and even a 5 to 10% decrease is real money to us. It's $40,000 to $80,000 based on the assessed home values in the area. And perception is everything. And we sit immediately below the tower, and that's a concern enough, I think, for people looking at homes of concern. We did our homework with both engineers. We feel comfortable with the earthquake retrofits. That was confidence builder for us. But we must disclose this by law. Existing planned cell sites are in real estate transactions. People make quick assessments when buying. Definitely reduce the buyer pool, having the cell equipment there, and will likely be used as a significant point of leverage for price reduction for those that do put in an offer. I don't want to have to market and convince prospective buyers that our home is safe. Being so close to the equipment, with a set of drawings and a safety report provided by AT&T, which they said that they would do, but I don't feel comfortable doing that. It's a losing battle. AT&T refused to provide example locations of other cell sites in the Tri-Valley area within 100 feet of existing homes. The only sites they acknowledge exist are installed in commercial areas more than 500 feet from these homes. This prevents the neighbors in the area from truly understanding the impacts on families and real estate in close proximity. So we had a meeting with them on site last November at the Road to Water Tower. No assurances were given that they would compensate neighbors closest to the tower in any way for any losses to the sale of their home. And one consultant even said that the property value could increase being so close to the site, and I have a hard time believing that. Our backyard environment, we feel, is going to be impacted. Our property has the unfortunate prospect of having a support utility shed so close, within 25 feet of our property. And I know there's electrical equipment, GPS units, and air conditioning. These cooling units surely won't make noise, and we're not happy about this. We have taken walks to other cell sites that we're aware of and found, and listen to constantly running cooling units that stand out for probably 100 feet. They're noisier than you think. And I don't want this equipment above and so close to our home to increase the normally quiet backyard environment. We spent a lot of money and personal time actually renovating our backyard to make it ours, and putting in retaining wall and pavers, and recently a new deck this summer. The site's approved will proactively limit our daughter's use of their backyard, no tree houses, for example. And we'll likely feel the need to install a tall wall of 50-foot cypress trees across the backyard to screen our home from direct line of sight, to help protect us and our property value. It's as invisible as AT&T claims it'll be. I feel that we'll constantly be reminded that the site is there. As neighbors, friends, and my daughter's playmates and family when visiting might ask, what's behind the house, and is the cell site safe? I don't think it's fair. Would you want to explain this to everyone visiting your home? Anyway, I appreciate your patience this evening. I do tend to be long-winded. I do also want to thank DSRSD Steve Delight, especially, for being so helpful and willing to entertain my frequent information queries. Again, I thank you for your time and consideration of my family's concerns in evaluating the benefits of the proposed cell site. And have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You sure are going to speak.
Did you want to say anything? Okay. Sorry. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Number 6, reports.
Thank you, President. I'm here with the board. A couple of things I wanted to mention tonight. We're planning the annual wastewater treatment plant neighborhood meeting for Monday night, October 20th. That'll be at 5:30. So it's a little over a month away, but I thought I would mention it as soon as possible because I know sometimes calendars fill up. So again, that's our meeting that we hold once a year. We'll be inviting everyone that lives within about a quarter mile or so of the treatment plant. Usually there's over 2,000 or 3,000 invitations as well. A couple other things I wanted to mention. Let's see, agenda item 8A, there is a typo on that item, and I thought we would point that out right now because it will be on consent. At the bottom of the summary and recommendation, the cost is indicated as 0.5% of project construction cost, while the paragraph immediately above, where it says committee review, indicates that it's 5% of the project cost. The correct number is 0.5, not 5%. Just wanted to point that out to you. Item 9C on tonight's agenda will not be needed. The customer that submitted an appeal of an exemption that was denied has since withdrawn his appeal. We did that just late this afternoon. So 9C again will not be needed tonight. And item number 11A for closed session is only needed tonight if the board wishes to discuss consent item 8C. Otherwise, if you don't have any discussion for item 8C, then 11A will be needed. And let's see, one other thing I would like to mention is under committee reports, there's the water liaison meeting indicated here. We don't have minutes of that meeting yet. We're currently in draft form, and they're going to bounce back and forth between us and the other entities a few times before they get finished. So we'll provide those to you at a future date.
Okay, thank you.
I did forget to mention there are 2 items of correspondence to the board. You should have copies of those, both of those in front of you. One of them is an email from Ed Coco, who just spoke to you. The other is an email from Monique Reynolds, a Santa Rosa resident, who submitted a request to appeal a waiver that had been denied.
Let's move on to item 7, approval of the minutes of the meeting of August 19th.
I have a quick question. On page 8, I was just double checking the fact that I think when I mentioned in the motion that was approved, that moved 30 minutes to 15 minutes or 50% of what was currently active. Because I think some of their timers were on like 15 minutes total, so that would be like 7.5. It was more for 50% than it was. It looks like 50% of what they were doing across the line. So I don't know how that if that changes. We just figure out.
Do you just want to add it?
I don't know how to approach that. Just to,
I think it'd be easier just to correct the minutes and add the additional statement.
Yeah, perfect, let's just do that. Or 50% of what was original, of the current schedule, that's fine.
Well, with that modification, we'll move for approval of the minutes. With that one.
And I'll approve, or I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of August 19th with the correction on page 8 to add a statement indicating that it should be reduced to 50% of its original time. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion unanimously carried. Let's move to item 8 on the consent calendar.
I wish to pull it in.
Any other comments?
I'll move for approval of 8B, C, D, and F.
I'll second it.
It's moved that we approve items 8B through F on the consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried.
I do have a comment. I just want to thank Fedora and John and Michelle for their work so far. I really don't appreciate you guys hanging in for us and doing a good job.
I think we can all up with that very easily. Everybody over there, except for Dan, the only one that's not.
I appreciate everything.
We appreciate the leadership that you guys have all done and all the work that you helped with this during this transition.
Interesting time. The worst drought ever.
You guys are
Stepping
rock
up to
stars.
the plate. Okay, Ed.
Medora, I'd like to ask, what were you, when you received this information from Sacramento, what exactly is Contractor Compliance and Monitoring, Inc.? That sounds to me like a private organization.
It is a consultant that we hired to help us navigate through the requirements in Sacramento, and they actually are helping us with doing the labor compliance reporting.
So, how are they funded?
We pay for them, and that the fee is the 0.5%.
0.5%. Okay, I just want to go on record as making a statement here. Most of you know, as everyone knows, I'm a general contractor doing this type of work. And I can tell you right now, it's going to cost you more than 0.5%. The California Labor Code for the last 35, 40 years has already provided for prevailing wages, proper registration of apprentices, and utilization of apprentices. This program, this legislation has been pushed through by organized labor in the last 2 years, and it's designed for one thing and one thing only, and that's to put open shop contractors out of business or exclude them completely from bidding and building public works. That doesn't change what's going to happen on this. I'm going to vote no, but that if it'll pass, because we have a quorum here, I'm sure. But if you don't stand up sometime for what you believe in, you're really not a deep, sincere person. As you know, I'm an open shop contractor. I built a job for DSRSD before I came on the board. And the open shop has been systematically excluded from all. We cannot bid on Port of Oakland work, West Contra Costa Unified School District work, City of Oakland work, all the school districts in San Jose, all the projects for Contra Costa County. Why? Because they've all had legislation brought in by staff who has been told by organized labor and directors who have been funded in their election that you need to put this legislation called the Project Labor Agreement. We're going to have that happen here. And I have no doubt it may have already passed by you. You haven't mentioned it yet. But I can tell you when me as a taxpayer and as a contractor who's been building public works for 50 years and complying with the Davis-Bacon Act and the Little Davis-Bacon Act in Sacramento, we pay all of our guys, all of our workers, union scale and union benefits, but we choose not to be union. So if we're complying with the law, Why should I have to become signatory in order to build a school building for the school district that my grandchildren go to? It's blatant extortion and discrimination. But if you don't know it, again, I'm going on record saying it, Sacramento is owned lock, stock, and barrel by organized labor. Period. And there's no, and I can't emphasize that more strongly. To see something like this come in, and I add another 1.5% to my cost to bid jobs that have this in. So it's getting passed along. So it's not costing you 0. That's CCMI. And I'll bet you anything those people are funded by organized labor. I can't tell you how angry it makes me to see something like this come before us. That's all I have to say.
Anybody else have any comments?
What? Well, I just wanted to know, is this something we need to do in order to obtain these grants? Is that-
Unfortunately, it is.
Okay, so they're linked.
Well, yes, it's a requirement for us to be able to receive our grant funds.
The labor lobbyists do that. Trust me, they do.
So the law's already been changed.
It's a done deal.
Then we allowed you your soapbox. I happen to agree with you. I didn't realize this was going this way. My dad was a union organizer, my mom was a union organizer, but I think at this stage of the game, some unions have gone way overboard, and I think their interest totally outweighs the interest of the people
Absolutely.
they're supposed to be representing.
Absolutely.
I'm not inherently in love with unions anyway.
It would be different if, what's really galling about this is that everything that they're asking to be done is already law, has been law for a long time. What they're doing now is they're bringing it to the boards, and they're saying, if you want the grant money, we want to make sure, and the record keeping becomes outrageous. The bigger the job, the more it costs.
So
We're doing a job for the city of Sunnyvale right now, $5 million, and they've got 2 people full-time just tracking the payroll.
I understand.
And 3/4 of our subs are union.
Yeah.
It's not right.
I thank you for
Oh.
your educational experience, your extra education. That's good for all of us to know. Because I think that it drives the price of the project.
It absolutely does.
Absolutely.
Don't think it doesn't.
Oh, it does, I've seen.
Okay, I'll shut up.
And we have to, we pay the open shops.
Any legal ramifications there?
Well, I mean, what this contract does, this is a cost tracking, this is tracking compliance with the law. This is what this is. It's making sure that you're dotting the i's and crossing all the t's. It's something that used to be done by the state. It will in the future be done by the state under a new law that was just passed that will require contractors to register. And if they're bad contract, they pay less than if they're considered to be bad contractors, and they can pay more and still be certified. But it's just an absurd, it's a different way of funding this. What this particular thing is just an agreement to watch over the compliance. But Director Gordy is right, there's a big push. A lot of state money's tied into this. Design build, there's a lot of the same sort of thing that is tied into a similar arrangement.
It's not only in construction, I mean, we really saw the effects of unions in the last primary for the assembly race right here in this district. You know, there's no doubt about it, they pretty much control the world if they so choose. But anyway. Okay, what's the will of the board here?
Well, I think
No, it's big.
despite all these bad things, and I appreciate speaking for but I would move for approval with the correction on SNR of 0.5. But with that, I would move to approve.
I'll second it.
Thanks, Ed.
Like I said, I agree with him, but if we're in a situation of not
You
being
have no
able to,
choice.
right.
Yeah, we don't have a
grant
choice.
funds,
They've held us hostage as well for grants.
As usual. But I would like to make sure we track this more closely. I'm really curious about Ed's comment that it's going to be a lot more than 0.5%.
The 0.5% is the cost of us hiring that contractor that monitors that. It's difficult to tell based on the bids, how much this cost is added,
Yes,
because they have to deal with that.
One final comment. You'll find, this is the crossing of the gate, you'll find that if you do a personal survey of union general contractors, they hate this as much as the open shops and contractors. And that's where the other cost comes in that you won't see when you're writing a check to CCMI for 0.5%. But all of us, generals, we're back putting more money in the cost of your project. So the
And
ultimate,
unfortunately, there's no set of
Oh, I know.
item for that,
You
so
can't
it's
track that.
difficult to track.
you can't trace it.
that's what happens with every single state mandate, let's face it. You know, life has gotten far more complex. My theory about 90% of people want to do the right thing all the time gets down to the 10% who has figured out how to make it more difficult for us. And this is part of the 10%. You know. Nobody believes what we say, so now we have to report it differently. Okay, I'll call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's 3-1, pass.
Or shut up.
Item 9, the enhancement program. Any items that you think need to be delved into? Do you have anything new to report to us?
Not under this item. This is just, of course, a standing item that's put on the agenda for the board to ask or talk about the drought management plan and changes in that aspects of the management.
Bottom line is, we're still in the drought.
And I assume we're going to talk a little bit about retailers meeting last week under the next item.
We depending on what you want to
Okay,
discuss.
all right.
Because
Actually,
Then let's move on to item 9B.
item 9B, of course, is the water supply and demand report. That's included in your agenda package. The action that we asked for from the board is to accept the report and also to make a finding that there is still a need for the community drought emergency at this time. The report includes, it's really extensive here with documenting what's going on, and it also highlights anything that's changed with regard to things going on around the state or within our local community. On page 3 of 18 is one of the graphics or metrics that we use around the district to keep track of how we are doing compared to the allocation that we were given by Zone 7. And we have been under the allocation since back around late June. And actually, with this past week's results, it looks like we have finally gotten our annual usage down under the 25% that Zone 7 is asked for. So it's continued to improve. We are continuing to get good conservation from our customers. There's all kinds of details in here. There are a number of things that are highlighted about things going on around the state with regard to the water supply, the state water project, the Central Valley project, and what have you. And not as well versed on many of those items, but I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. One thing I also would like to mention, is, you know, gathers a lot of interest, is our residential recycled water facility. This past weekend now, we have a total of 336 users signed up. And we have, those customers have taken 900,000 gallons of recycled water home with them for use around their houses. We will probably cross the 1 million gallon mark this weekend. We normally we're seeing well over 20,000 gallons a day that are being hauled from our plant home. And it isn't slowing down.
It's great.
It just continues to grow, and we're still signing up more people every night. So I think we could call it a pretty successful,
Resounding
success.
I saw some guy the other day, he was driving down Clark with this big little boat, he had a little trailer on the back with two 5-gallon drums. John, who's that guy? Do you know who he is?
No.
But he's driving his little truck and it says recycled water. I'm like, oh, yeah. It's so funny.
It is amazing.
It's good, but
And we had a meeting at a treatment plant this afternoon, actually with the city of Pleasant, to talk about the recycled water program. And the people that came to the meeting said, "What's going on out there? Is there some kind of tour?" And he said, "No, that's just our usual crowd coming to get recycled water." So,
good, thank you staff for doing that. That's just amazing.
Great job.
you know, another good development too, we have almost 5,000 people now signed up for Aquahawk. So, you know, considering we have, about 20,000 connections total around the district, so we've got 25% of all of our customers that are signed up for this. So that continues to be a huge asset for our customers and also staff for monitoring use.
I love that website, it's great. I use it all the time.
It is.
You know, all my friends, these people, they all be blog on it, show everything. How we can go, that was best.
See, I'll move
We're
that
proud of you guys.
we accept the report, and that we find that there is still a community drought emergency.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the report and acknowledge that we still have a drought emergency. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried.
And I do have just a comment, page 14 of 18, I thought was really interesting about BBID transfer to Zone 7. Which I thought was interesting, since 1985 has been going on. It changed, I think, in 2012. There's a transfer that DWR did consent. So I just thought so Zone 7, in the water that's being paid back to Byron Bethany Irrigation District, is that taken into consideration out of our allocation? Because they have to return water. So
Well-
is that pulled out of our storage water? How's it
Byron Bethany water, will that ever store water?
So they were replacing
Byron Bethany would be one of the sources, of course, that Zone 7 would utilize for water from the state water fund. And I don't believe they've been able to get Byron Bethany water yet. The last report, the last analysis that we got from,
So it's just CCWD that's repaying it?
I do believe, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think there's been an agreement to repay, so I think that's what the status is actually. And see, what happened this year is CCWD forgoed some diversions in order that the water that normally would come from BBID, I think the water went to.
It went to Zone 7. And then,
Well, what happened with the
Without
CCWD waters, the BBID took that water, but it's a separate matter as to whether the BBID transferred to Zone 7. The BBID's right had to curtail its diversion, so if it hadn't been for CCWD, it would have been dry. But these are sort of two different things that are in the same paragraph.
Got it.
The other one is that there's a claim by DWR that you've been taking our water.
Right.
giving it the zone 7, one of our contractors, like, you're supposed to, I don't know, I guess the idea
It's
is
like
that
a third-
DWR
it's
is
a
supposed to
third
get
party.
paid rather than BBID getting paid, I don't know. But there's
Oh.
no agreement as to whether that should happen or how it would happen, so that's the status right now as far as I know.
Well, it says here, this year BBID will receive 3,000 acre feet of supplemental water between August 28th via transfer from CCWD.
Right,
But prior to that,
that's
it
to
says.
BBID, not from BBID to zone
Right.
7, it's sort of confusing in some scenario.
Both BBID and Zone 7 are vigorously objecting to DWR's position, and it's based on the fact that BBID was not telling DWR about them giving water to Zone 7. So,
They
anyway,
didn't
I just wanted
notice,
to-
they didn't notice, I guess, in the 17 years it was happening, I suppose.
Yeah.
Without consent. So
They're
I
the
just-
state, they
it
don't
was
know
interesting.
these things.
I read all the
Too
yellow
much
sections.
micromanaging for them.
So, anyway. Okay, well, but CCWD's involved, so I know you're handling them. Okay. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting.
Okay, 9C is off the agenda. Item 10, board member items. Dawn.
I'd like to acknowledge that some staff came along with a few board members to Tom McCormick's memorial service. That was very special last week. And I think the family and his life was very interestingly given. I mean, it was a very wonderful, very heartfelt. And then also, I'd like to share this Demand Management Advisory Committee report that was put together from East Bay Money and based on the advisory committee about looking at forward thinking on demand management, water supply, water supply. So as we go forward, some of the discussions that happened last week at the retailers, I just thought this document would be really good to pass it out to the board members, just to take a peek and see what an advisory committee did as we move forward with our public outreach. The other question, the other thought is I think it would be nice to have an opportunity to bring somebody from the bond to come up. We talked about that last week as well, or we talked about that at the lieutenant's meeting. It'd be really nice to have somebody come up and actually go over with the public and do a couple of public sessions about what's in the bond. One of my old bosses works for MWD and has been part of the bond committee, Gary Brown. And it'd be nice to have him come up and maybe answer, give a presentation and answer questions. So that's just kind of what I would suggest. And that's it for me.
Nothing else. Well, the thing is, the water retailers liaison is at 7, probably won't speak to that, so. It was more of a, kind of a informational meeting. Here's what we've done, here's how each agency is managed and given to run, as opposed to looking. Actually, that was the fall. I didn't notice that Carla Brown, she brought up the topic of ability. And this topic's going to come up again and again. In fact, she suggested that we agreed that we put her on the next agenda. But that's something we really have to be careful how we handle that. It's going to be very careful. There's the money coming. So I think, I don't know when it needs to be a next meeting or maybe a follow-on meeting, but it needs to be a presentation perhaps by each agency as to the concept of building the what does it mean? Water surcharge or wastewater, but, pleasant. And then, how does it impact the city? All the money they borrowed, and spent on future items that correspond to general plans of the city. That all has to be kind of sorted out. In fact, maybe it impacts our school district, I don't know, maybe even make them, I think it's wrong.
Well, I think also you may want to invite City of Dublin to that meeting,
Yeah.
since they're like the only city that's not represented,
So anyway, that's kind of,
except
it's something that it's not gonna go, something on the horizon.
By the way, I have forwarded that message to Chris Voss and Smith to let them know that the group invited the city of Dublin to attend the next meeting, which of course is scheduled for Saturday, September 27th at 9 a.m. at Village Hall. So I have not had a chance to talk to Chris yet, but he has the information.
Okay,
I want to make sure that they were aware that the issue of a moratorium would come up, and the city of Dublin was invited and asked to come.
okay. That's all.
Well, along with all of you, directors, Howard, Benson, and our president, Georgine, who hosted the meeting, I was in attendance as well. And it's true, I found it interesting that every agency made glowing reports of wonderful progress in compliance with the drought mandates. What I found interesting also, though, was a couple of very eloquent, well-informed speakers from the public. They made some very good comments and commentary on what the private citizens' perspective is on the current situation. One gentleman in particular impressed me when he said, "It's nice to hear all these reports, but we are looking to you, the group that was at the dais that evening. So we're looking to you for the leadership to guide our Tri-Valley into a better position than we have had for the last 50 years." Easier said than done, but that is a very good point. And so I think it's very important that all of us, and especially our representatives who go to these meetings, that we keep that in mind on a long-term vision. That we've got to make our voices heard not only at Zone 7 and East Baymont, but at Sacramento and DWR, because the long-term solution is not going to be easy for all of us. But we're the elected officials. We're the agency that we need to be delivered. So I found his comments very telling, and I thought very well done.
Okay, well, the gentleman who made those comments was Scott Reedy, who's the CEO of the Pleasanton Chamber, and then James Paxton followed up, who's the executive director of the Hacienda Business Association. So you heard from probably two relatively influential people in Pleasanton. Ironically, after the three dams gave their presentation as to where we are in each community, Zone 7 then had their turn, and they talked about their long-term look to the future, which in their mind is 2015. And all of us at that point said, screw 2015, what about way beyond? What are you doing there? And they don't really have a whole bunch of answers because they keep falling back on, we don't know what's going to happen with the weather, and we don't know what DWR is going to do. And I really got the sense everybody was getting a little frustrated. I know I was, because you wanted to say, get off your bed and go find us something. At least look at something. Participate in something that we can go advocate on your behalf for. But they truly don't see it that way. They don't see themselves as the solution at all. And, it's obvious that the public sees all of us as the solution, and maybe Zone 7 isn't the solution. So, but the point is, at the next meeting, because she talked about, which I'm really surprised, because if you read the newspaper article, their city attorney told them 9 million reasons why they couldn't issue a moratorium, because Zone 7 still said there was enough water, basically, and there was a lot more detailed information than that. But anyway, when she talked about a moratorium, I said that absolutely Dublin had to be there, that was into our purview. And so hopefully they can make themselves available. I know Tim isn't going to want to participate, but you have all the other members that I'm sure will want to.
There's a couple of council members that can spend.
Yeah, as well they should be. But again, Pleasanton can't do this in a vacuum. And just from what the article said, their attorney, and we know this, we just know this, that, as long as Zone 7 says there's enough water, we can't issue a building moratorium without getting sued. So, but the fact is, all of that is irrelevant if we can't go find more water, which I think that's the thing we should be doing, is trying to push Zone 7. If they don't want to take the lead, then we're going to take the lead. And I know Bert knows this too, because he's made comments before that we've got to step up and do it ourselves. Having gone to CASA, which is my other report, we're still looked to as that, little district that can. We keep doing these innovative things. I heard about Dan's recycled water program from 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different people the whole 3 days. So it behooves us to stay on top of this. And as long as we're going to be setting meetings, everybody, well, they started to say again about, I forget what it's called, the one that sets up meetings. It's not, anyway, there's a program out there where you can choose meeting dates. That's it. And everybody said, we're all right here, right now. Well, we have this meeting and that meeting, and that's when Bill Stevens said, well, what's the matter with Saturday morning? We're all available Saturday morning. And you could see staff going, Most of us don't really care about Saturday morning because there are too many meetings during the week. But anyway, that's how it ended up on Saturday. Yeah, we got to get serious about this, and I think the city's going to have to do something. I know they're not going to want to take too many stands before the election, but I think at least in a public forum, we're going to get pushed into talking about this publicly, and we haven't wanted to. So, and then the other thing was the CASA event. I have to admit, this time I was, slightly disappointed. Some of the sessions were a little technical for a director. They had someone talking about the water bond, but it's so vague yet, nobody understands it, and everybody keeps saying, well, we finally get everything down, we'll have someone come out and give it. In fact, they're doing a special session later this fall on the bond. It's like, why did you schedule a whole morning to talk about the bond if nobody knew what they were going to talk about? So, like I said, overall I was a little disappointed, but it was, I suppose I learned some things. I took 9 pages of notes, but that doesn't necessarily mean they were anything that, was explosive. CASA's been really involved in internally changing the organization to be more of one that's operated by an executive director that absolutely runs it. That's not been history. So anyway, that's all I have to report on. If nobody has anything else. Also, I will not be here for the next meeting. Please talk about the cell phone tower that day. Please. I'm leaving for Chicago next Wednesday, and I won't be back for the following Wednesday. So, have fun.
Well, you too.
Thank you. Just pray that it doesn't rain in Chicago on Sunday for the race. I don't care about any of the rest of the days, just the race. Okay, meeting's adjourned.
So we can just, you got my email, so
Yeah,
you can just forward it out.
you can sort of relate
I just think it's
with on the whole labor versus,
about a year. And also hold by a
they're asking,
year.
they're putting in legislation that skilled work
I was
is 30 minutes, certain apprentices approved by an approved program, and all that sort of stuff, which to me, obviously, it's obvious what they're doing. And the CASA legislation went from a support to as a result of this last changes on the side bill. So, this is.